But today I'm going to be talking about, it's based on a book, The Marshmallow Test, and it's all about delayed gratification and self-control. So it's quite a technical speech, and you just have to bear with me if I just hope you can keep it all good. So I think self-control and delayed gratification almost been a theme of the Bible from the start. You look in Adam and Eve, it was the fruit Satan came with, and then they were left the Garden of Eden. David with Bathsheba, he had it all, but he wanted more. He couldn't control himself. But right now in our time, where we are, I think I could be wrong, but I think we're living in one of the hardest times to have self-control. We've got more food available than we've ever had. We can go to the supermarket, any dairy, we can eat as much as we want because it's not that expensive. We've got a click of a mouse, you're on a porn site, it's that easy. Our phones are beeping at us constantly, trying to get our attention. That takes a huge amount of self-control to get that in proportion. And also money temptations. There's now Afterpay at half the shops in town. You can walk in, you can buy anything you want, just pay it later. That's too easy. So how do we as Christians, what can we do, or what tools can we have to try and help with this? Well, the first thing I want to talk about is our brain operates in a hot and cold system. So the longer we can stay in a cold system, the more we're making good decisions. Now, with one of my sons, he quite quickly gets into the hot zone, and I've spent probably 10 years arguing with him at times in that hot zone. So he'll get quite worked up about something really fast, and then I get worked up, and then next thing we're shouting at each other. And I've just realised from reading this book that it's probably better if I just say, look, now's not time we'll discuss this, or we'll just, yeah, you're okay, it's okay, let's just get it back to the calm zone, and then we can talk about that later.
Great.
The other thing with the hot and cold zone is we're born with a hot zone, so all children are born, they don't have the cold zone, so until they're 4, then they start developing the cold zone.
Wow.
And that doesn't fully develop, especially in males, till about 22. So one thing that we can do with our children to help them develop that cold system is to distract them. So say they're getting worked up about something, say, oh, hang on, look, there's a toy over here, or just some sort of distraction teaches them to take their mind off what they're doing, and that transfers to an adult. So if you're an adult and you're thinking, I want to eat some cake or something, then eat some celery, or try and move to something else to try and distract yourself from it.
Great.
The next point is our environment shapes our self-control attitudes. So, as I mentioned earlier, parents can teach their children self-control by distracting them from unpleasant situations. On the other hand, if a parent introduces too many distractions, they can almost become, they're expecting to be entertained all the time. So it goes hand in hand with giving them choices as well. Sorry, I just got to check where I am. Like any other skill, self-control is partly genetic, but it's mainly shaped by an environment. Everyone has the ability to improve their self-control because our life experiences are constantly remodeling who we are. They did an experiment with rats where they got a whole lot of clever rats. I don't know how they work out whether rats are clever, but they were. And not so clever rats. They put the clever rats with the not so clever rats, and they quickly became not so clever. Then they put the dumb rats with the clever rats, and the clever rats started getting clever. So I think that's a really good example of where, you need people around you that are thinking outside the square or have got good ideas or are doing things. If you're just hanging out with people that are making really bad decisions, it's going to be really hard for you to make good decisions.
So good.
I think it's something James always says from the front: surround yourself with good people and your life will go better. And that's where the church environment, doesn't that just give us such an awesome environment that, we're not on our own, we've got people around us.
So good.
Excuse me. The third point, how much self-control we have depends on the context, but is ultimately unlimited. If you have a think about that, your self-control should be unlimited. So you shouldn't limit yourself to thinking, oh, I can only do this and that's it. That is unlimited. Now the context, this is quite an interesting one, because how often have we seen people that are in really high positions and they have an extremely, they've got everything together, but they fail in one area. And it's usually infidelity. Like they have an affair. So that happened to David. Bill Clinton's another example of bad example. But I sort of thought about that for myself, and I thought, yeah, it is true. I have some really good, I can delay my gratification with money, like I can make do with things, but with some other areas, I had a challenge with my daughter not to eat sugar this month, and it's been extremely hard. But you can do it, and it's all about just, can you make those choices? The other thing, I'll just tell you this one now. So the other thing to think about is, say you're about to eat a piece of cake and you shouldn't be eating this cake. And I'm just using food as an example, okay? I'm not picking on that. But one way to be would be, think you're 20 years further down the track, you're 20 years older, and you're about to tell your daughter or your son that you've got type 2 diabetes. And it's a consequence of eating certain things during your life, and that's what your future's now going to be. So I think it just makes you think twice. So it's projecting into the future. What is the consequence of this in the future? Yeah. I mean, even things like, say we're driving too fast down the road. What are the consequences if you have a crash in the future? Say you couldn't walk properly anymore. It's just thinking about those really long-term consequences.
So good.
Another thing that can really affect our self-control is rejection, and our high rejection in a younger age. So if people have experienced rejection in a young age or feel rejected, it's going to have a really big impact on their life later. And I think, there's a lot of people, I think everyone here that's in ministry will deal with people that have had that in their past, but it may explain sometimes why they're acting a certain way. So high rejection people are almost going to sabotage a friendship. So you might get alongside them and then you'll think, why are they behaving like that? Because they're always trying to prove themselves right, that everyone's going to reject them.
Wow.
So if you are alongside someone and they're doing that, just keep in mind that maybe it's not you, it's just something that's happened in their past. Yeah. Point 5 is children should be taught that they're capable of making their own decisions and that those decisions have consequences. And I think that's almost a theme through the Bible where, they were going to go into the promised land, but Moses did something wrong and they all had to hold back. It's just story after story in the Bible. It's not always easy to give your kids consequences. I certainly look back and think, there's things that I've done wrong in my parenting, but if you can be consistent and try and make them realise that there are consequences, they're going to learn from that and learn to have more self-control as they grow older.
Great.
And just one other thing on that, if parents encourage their kids, so say they're learning to play the piano and the child fails, but they know their parents are going to go, hey, you failed that time, but just have another go. You did really well up till then.
That's right.
It teaches them that failure's okay,
That's right.
because you're never going to get good unless you keep trying and fail. So it's just learning that failing is okay as well.
Great. Awesome.
Right, we're nearly there. You. Right, so in summary, the key messages are, as Christians, we should have a huge advantage when it comes to self-control.
That's right.
The first point is to operate in that call system. Now, what can we do as Christians when we feel ourselves getting worked up? We can pray.
Great.
Great.
That's immediately going to take us back into the call system. Our environment, well, we should be in a loving, caring environment with people around us in the church.
Great.
We've got a loving God. Our starting point is that we have a God that loves us, cares for us, and wants to bless us. So that's our starting point. That's our environment. The third point is our self-control is ultimately unlimited. I love this because we serve an unlimiting God.
Yeah.
We never limit what God can do in our lives. And that just, again, what an awesome starting point.
Yeah. So good.
The fourth point was, do we or have we got high rejection in our lives? Again, you are a child of God. He loves you. He died on the cross for you, and He has a plan for your life. That's our starting point. The fifth point, there are consequences for our actions. The Bible explains this in so many stories, and we all experience that in our lives. But He also is a redemptive God. If we do make mistakes, that's, part of life. We can improve our self-control.
Come on.
The whole concept of being a child of God is that He's there to help us. We can pray, God's there to help us, and we're on the road to improve all the time. So, I just really want to encourage you. I hope that some of those points have helped.
Great.
To just try and improve your self-control and delayed gratification. And I was thinking, just like there's a lot of things, I've just been away for a week with a whole lot of young people, and they've been doing amazing things at the Hillary Outdoor Centre. There's a lot of distractions in our lives and a lot of things that we feel like we need to be doing, but there are certain things that are out of our control, and there's some things that are in our control. And I think if we can work on the things that are in our control, then we're going to have much better lives and also much more satisfied. I mean, I was even just thinking about myself, like, you think, oh, I need a flasher car, or I need this, and it's like, that's not going to change my life.
Come on.
That's not going to change anything. It's just being happy with where you are and what you're doing and continuing on that. So that's it from,
Awesome.
Okay.
You can hear me? You can hear me? Okay, cool. So you can hear. I want to ask you a question.
Yep.
I think it'd be really cool. When we're on a hike and we ask each other questions anyway about things. For delayed gratification, can you just give us some things that you've noticed and some advice around finances when it comes to delayed gratification? And if you didn't notice that, he did talk about how one thing that he's really good at is delayed gratification when it comes to that area. And I mean, this is evidence, part of the evidence of why you have it's at your core. You have delayed gratification when it comes to the way you spend money. It's not just because you're Dutch. If you don't get that, you'll get. So can you just give us some? What are some of the things that you're noticing in this generation or in our day and age? You mentioned afterpay and stuff, and then just what are some of those things around delayed gratification that you would advise anyone in this room when it comes to finances?
Yeah, so just really think about what you're spending. So everything, so you might get a coffee a day, that adds up to $250 a year. Doesn't seem that much, but it all adds up. And say you're overspending by $5 a day, eventually you're going to go bankrupt, if that makes sense. It's not the big things, we've got to think small sometimes to get somewhere. So an example would be, I keep coming back to food and I apologise for that, but if you ate one chip too much a day, eventually you're fat. If you spend, it's true, yeah. If you spend $5 a day too much, eventually you're going to be broke. If you're not living within your means, you're never going to get anywhere. So when we started off really young, we bought a house, and we've always really tried to just be good with our money as far as there's a long-term plan. And even now, the long-term plan is quite hard to stick to. But to give you a bit of an idea, we bought a section, I'll try not to make it too long, but it takes years to get here. It's not 5 minutes. My advice would be, could you put 8% into your KiwiSaver? It's a practical thing. And could you, I would be surprised how many people, if you went to your boss and said, look, at the moment you're giving me 4% of my KiwiSaver, how would you feel about giving me 6%? Because I'd really like to buy a house one day. No one out of my staff has ever asked me that. If anyone asked me that, I would probably go, oh, okay, I'll match it. Yeah, And without realising it, I'm probably giving away another $20, $30 a week. They put in another $20, $30 a week. $60 a week is another $1,000 a year probably, or more. How much is that? $3,000. Yeah, So it might be really small things that you need to do, like buying a car. If it's one of my bugbears is I think I'm quite good at buying cars, but we pay for cash for all our cars.
Right.
If you go to a dealer and buy a car, you're probably going to pay $2,000 or $3,000 more for that car. So you're going to get a $10,000 car that's probably worth $7,000. You're then looking at some finance, 15%. So you're going to pay probably about $3,000 to $5,000 interest on that car.
That's
By the time you've paid that off, that car's going to be worth $5,000 or $4,000. It's just like a recipe to go nowhere, unfortunately. So if you could save, if anyone here ever wants to buy a car, and I'm not saying I'm an expert, but I'd just love to help someone. I do a Google search, I look for the lowest Ks, the highest, the newest car with the lowest Ks, and the basic models. Don't go for Subarus or anything, you know what I mean? There are good Subarus, okay? Or European cars. You don't buy, we've bought a Fiat Punto for our son, but I wouldn't recommend people buying cars that are hard to get parts for. That's a massive part of your finances. If you can get that, something reliable, and then I guess you have to look after them as well, If you don't put oil in them and they crap out. So that would kind of be, I don't know, is that?
You actually got heaps of time.
Oh, okay.
We usually get to 10. I just think you got a lot of wisdom that's actually helped. So there was the year that Paul turned up and his family turned up in our church was the year that the Lord gave me and James the word difference for us personally. And we were like, what does that mean? And he said to us, you cannot grow to a place where you do not have those different people in your world that are going to help you get there. And then along came the Riedels. At that time, we're probably, the whitest new family that walked through our doors at that time. And that was a good thing for us, because then we became friends, and I started to learn things and just watch and observe. And I just really, really appreciated the wisdom that you carry when it comes to finances. So can you just dive into a little bit more of just what you see the struggles of today, and how you would say you did that with the car? What are some other things around delayed gratification? Because too many people want it right now. That's why they get the afterpay. They want the MasterCard, so they get those things after now. They're spending money they don't actually have. What are some other things that you've just noticed that you think has just been gold?
I think it's just about being really smart with your money, and a lot of.
Say something about a section, and then it was a long story.
Okay, yeah. So I'll just tell a brief history about how we started in property. So we were about 19 and we wanted to buy our first house. I sold this $500 car that paid for a deposit on a section, and I know things are not like that anymore. all that did was hold it, okay? And then I was fortunate my in-laws lent us $10,000 so we could have a deposit, and then later we paid that $10,000 back to them once we did some work. But it was all about just getting on the bandwagon somewhere. We then moved to Taupo. We're in Palmerston North, and we bought a batch which I thought we could do up. Well, that was stupid. We eventually bowled it and built a new house. And to give you an idea, on that new house, I did the concrete laying, the block laying, built the frames, painted the house, gypstopped the house, tiled the house, did everything. Now, not everyone can do that, but it is using your talents. So everyone's got some talents of what they could do. And that just meant we ended up being freehold at about 36 years old.
Wow.
We were then able to invest into some other properties. Some of them did well, some of them have been kind of waste of time. And we ended up buying 2 sections in Raywood Crescent, and I used to take my kids there every Saturday, and they'd have to help build. I said, this is for you guys' future. One day you guys are going to inherit this, or it's part of our family thing we're doing. And when we sold one of those buildings, someone wanted to buy it off me, and that was the story why I was driving around going, what could I do if I sold that building? And then I thought, we could buy this building that wasn't for sale at the time, but we could have a crack at it. And that, that's a long time ago that we made that decision, because we couldn't have bought this just outright, It was those stepping stones that got us here. So it's quite cool that, when we bought that, God already had a plan for way later that, this could happen here.
Because people see the end result, and they want the end result without having to play the long game of self-control and discipline in the process.
So we freeholded at 36, but our youngest was 1 year old then. We had 4 kids, and it's a 400 square metre section, which I'm okay with, but our kids shared a room for their whole youth. Now, we could have sold that house and built a flash house then, but it would have restricted everything we did would have been restricted. So by being freehold, it meant we could visit my mum in Holland and take the kids over there and spend that money on that. We weren't putting it into a mortgage as such. But it is a sacrifice. People now will see where we live and think, far out, that's pretty flash. And I drive up the gate and go, that's pretty flash. It is flash. And but there's been a 30-year progression to get there. So I just think I haven't got any massive advice as far as property right now is, but I would say if you have any family members that could help you, if you can, your KiwiSaver is probably your key thing. If you can get $50,000, I don't know, into a KiwiSaver, and maybe your husband or wife has something similar, you might just get there. And don't think this property is going to stay like this forever. We're, right now we're in this ridiculous cycle of it's super high. That could change, and it'll probably take another 3 years. But again, if you think long term, okay, right now it's not looking good, but in 3 or 4 years, not many people have ever asked me to try and help them with property, and it's like, if you, it just surprises me because I thought maybe someone would over the years, but there's only been 1 or 2 people that have ever asked. Okay, sweet. Yep.
You have us all knocking on the door.
Yeah. Oh, I think unfortunately we're in a terrible situation where rent has become so high that we're now trapping people in rent, because how can you ever save for a house? If you could put that $500 a week straight into your mortgage, you'd be fine. Yeah. But
But with this delayed gratification, you say things like, my kids over their whole youth age sleep in the same room. Like, that's delayed gratification of sacrifice. People want the new TV, but they just won't be content with the box that they have.
I don't think we've ever bought a TV.
We just bought our first TV, and it wasn't for me, it was for my mum.
Yeah.
And we still haven't bought for a TV for ourselves. It's delayed gratification. That new TV's coming.
I think another funny thing to think about is when you buy something, don't try and find the cheapest stuff. So, like my guys, sometimes they'll buy tools and they'll come back and go, I bought this, mate, it was cheap. And it's like, that's not even going to last 5 minutes, And there's so much available now that's just rubbish. Like, if you're going to buy, anything, it needs to be good quality. And sometimes you can find second-hand stuff that's better quality for similar price or cheaper. Does that make sense?
Has anyone got any other questions that you'd like to ask Paul before we sign off? Great.
Could you just talk about like daily habits you have that are better ways of using money? So like being organised and like taking your lunch to work, or just like you probably do a lot of things that people don't do that have actually helped you save money and be organised and have more time. And
so, one thing we were quite lucky with is that I sort of see my role in our marriage as I go to work and run the business, and Kim was busy with 4 kids looking after them. You could say, that doesn't work anymore. What it did do is like we do buy takeaways, but we probably have takeaways once a week, to be honest, which I still feel like is quite a bit. I'd probably rather not. But when you spend $40 or $50 on takeaways and you think what you could get from the supermarket for that, it's just not worth it. And so I take my lunch to work every day, and I have the same lunch every day. And my daughter thinks I'm ridiculous. It's 4 sandwiches, peanut butter and honey, lettuce, cheese and Marmite, okay? It's nothing exciting. I don't know how much that lunch costs, probably $2, maybe $1.50, I don't know. But maybe over my 20 years lifetime. And I still look forward to my lunch, silly enough. Yeah. I do buy a coffee or something, but since this sugar challenge, I've cut back. So it's kind of like I've shifted from buying chocolate milk to say tea, and that makes quite a big difference. And also just like not buying sweet stuff, that's made quite a big difference. But it's a trap, like you want to reward yourself short term. We've also I stopped drinking this year, and I've never stopped drinking, and I've never gone without sugar too, by the way. So I managed to do 9 months, and it's just, it's always there. Like you think, it's gonna, it's just nice to have a few beers, and it's so psychological. It's taken me 9 months to change my thinking. To like it.
Great, mate.
And I think the other thing we've been told that is just a lie is that, 1 or 2 beers is nice, 6 or 7 is even better.
Wow.
And it's like, no. There is something in us mentally that likes alcohol, okay? So don't beat yourself up if you like a drink, because there's something in our mind that likes to be, it interferes with your nerves and you get a bit fuzzy, and there's something that we just like it as humans, okay? So don't feel like you're a bad person if you like a drink of alcohol. But that feeling doesn't improve the more you have. So yes, after 1 you might feel nice, feel comfortable. Oh, I'll have another 10 because then I'll feel on top of the world. That's not how it works. And that's what I've had to tell myself too, because I've been caught up in this, like, oh yeah, we'll have a few more. And I can tell some pretty bad stories. In lockdown, I nearly turned into an alcoholic the first time, and it just got to the point where this has got to change. And we had a Christmas work do, and I pride myself on having good Christmas work do's for my staff. But one guy ended up, they found him in a paddock the next day. He had hypothermia and he was having seizures. And so he's got 3 young kids, ended up in hospital, and I thought, oh mate, something's got to change here, eh? So him and I and a few other guys stopped drinking for a while, and we've cut it right back. Yeah, it just crept in slowly into our business as like, yeah, we'll meet Friday at the pub and have a few beers, and then it was a few more, and yeah, before you know it, yeah, that's where we ended up. But again, yeah, that's just that sort of lies we've been told, or it's ideas we've got in our head that we have to try and change. Yeah.
Great. One more question, Lisa.
Where did you learn your mindsets? Like, were you taught as a child healthy mindsets about finances? Because obviously I've got 2 young kids and I want to bring them up the right way. So how did you learn everything?
That's a really hard question because we've got 4 kids and one's got a really bad mindset with money. At the moment, it could change. We were given pocket money, and then basically there were 7 kids in my family and there was no money. So it was like, if you wanted some money, get a job. So I had a paper run for my whole youth, and then I think possibly giving them a little bit. So, and coming back to you, Alicia, I think sometimes it's quite nice to put $50, and I've talked to you about this, James, just say withdraw, give yourself some spending money. So say, I'm going to have $40 a week spending money, and I'll put it in my wallet. So then when you go and get a coffee, you go, sweet, that's $5 now. Oh yeah, so that could be 10 if I get something to eat. Sweet, I've still got 30, that's all good. Yeah, but if I save the 30, then I'll have 70 next week. It's so easy, like you get that thing out, and now you just go like that, and like,
That's right.
yeah, yeah, and then you've got that one, that's got a $10,000 limit. So I can spend $10,000 with that at any point. That's ridiculous. Like, that's okay. Like this. How did that...
Business related.
No, but you sort of think, you can just empty your account just by going chink, 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 chink. But if you physically had $50 in here, sometimes I say to people, imagine, the thing is,
That was something I learned from Paul when he told me about it. And so in our budget, we give vision to every dollar, which means our spending money, my spending money, and Jim's spending money, it's vision. And on that vision is, I get to spend this on whatever I want. We don't get $40 a week. I'd love to get $40 a week. That's more like $40 a fortnight. But at least it's there, and I know. Once it's gone, it's gone. But I practice delayed gratification. I just keep saving it and saving it. And Gemma can see the account. She goes, "Whoa, you got $180?" I'm like, "Yeah, boy." What it taught me is like, I don't need to go buy me food. I'll just go eat the food at home. That's in our shopping budget. And I can save my money.
Comes out of that budget.
That's right.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Well, look, we're going to cut there. I know Paul's got to get back to work, even though I'm sure he's enjoying this. Thank you so much, Paul.
Yeah,
I
good.
know there's a lot. Look, there are great people in the life of our church, like Paul, Pam and Kevin cared. There are others there that just have this great sense of stewardship of finances. The problem is that we're just not, we feel like we're not worthy of hanging out with this guy. That's how some of those things, like rejection, right? As Paul was saying, we feel like, oh, I'm not worthy because I'm not there. And I'm just like, yeah, but he's just saying, if you ask me, come ask me the right questions and I'll help you. It's up to you whether you use it. So this is why we've got to get really good at hanging out with the right people who are going to help you get to somewhere where you're believing for. And I just want to honour you and thank you. You've done that for me and my family. You've brought a mentality into the life of our church, whether you feel like or see that or not. And I'm sure you won't be the person who goes around saying that, but I want to say that. I want to thank you, your wife. You've been very generous to our family with your time and with your guys' love and care, and we appreciate you. And I just want to let you know that the fruit that comes out of these sessions and out of the people in church, you and your wife laid down a lot, and I want to thank you for your guys' sacrifice, because now we're in a building that's going to train people to be better at what they do and who they are. So can we just please honour and thank you?